All right. 37, the lines. Line 1. Firm seclusion within the family, remorse disappears. Firm seclusion within the family describes the cosmic principle that the cosmic family operates as a harmonious whole. For the individual human being, this means that he takes his true place within the whole by respecting as equal every other aspect of the cosmos, including the invisible helpers and the invisible world of nature. Remorse disappears pronounces the result if a person ceases to regard himself as special. His remorse was due to having excluded the invisible cosmic consciousness from his everyday awareness, and thereby he had also excluded the sage and the helpers from his life. In doing so, he deprived himself of his source of the renewal of his life force, and of the thousands of ways in which the helpers make his life harmonious. To keep aware of them in his daily life is to keep secluded within the cosmic family. The parents, on the other hand, who view themselves as representing the collective ego, create the impression in the child that they are the only source for his primal needs. They succeed in instilling the collective ego's program in the child's psyche by threatening him with the loss of the support of the family if he does not comply with the moral duties put upon him. These duties entail his suppressing his inner truth and all that he knows of the invisible world. The truth he is to follow is that which has been filtered through and interpreted by the authorities of the collective ego's institutions. A further aspect of the collective ego's definition of firm seclusion within the family has to do with attachment to family traditions that make a person feel comfortable. As a consequence, he feels repelled by the traditions of other families. This kind of attachment creates wars between the factions and spells within the individual clan members. In pursuing the goal of freeing the true self, it is necessary for a person to free himself of such exclusiveness. This entails his ridding himself of the belief that his personal family tradition is superior. It also requires saying the inner no to efforts by others within his circle to make their traditions prevail. Only then can each person discover and fulfill his uniqueness. Otherwise, the pressure of the clan takes over to make each person conform. To love one's family is one thing, to become attached to it as a clan is another. Remorse has to do with misusing the cosmic gift given to a person or a couple in the form of a child. This child, with all its cosmic and natural possessions, is an opportunity for them to express their own love and caring feelings, to discover and express their own cosmic and natural possessions. The child, in its innocence, reflects the harmony of the cosmos. Remorse can occur, however, if the parents regard the child as their property. They are but caretakers on behalf of the cosmic whole. The collective ego makes parents think that the child is property given to them on its behalf, and that they are merely its administrators. In older feudal cultures, the king could approach any family and appropriate for his personal use or for public sacrifice the family's children or child. To be sincere means to make the effort of bringing himself back into harmony with the cosmos. See Luigi Pirandello's play 6 Characters in Search of an Author, for a demonstration of the captivity and sacrifice of the true self by the characters to the roles within the family, as defined by the collective ego. I'll say that again. To be sincere means to make the effort of bringing himself back into harmony with the cosmos. See Luigi Pirandello's play 6 Characters in Search of an Author, for a demonstration of the captivity and sacrifice of the true self by the characters to the roles within the family as defined by the collective ego. Such practices invariably bring remorse, inasmuch as the child is taken away from the family, either physically or literally. In a broader sense, firm seclusion refers to a way of coping with a specific problem. in refusing to be drawn off the center point of what is correct by ancillary considerations, the collective ego would preoccupy a person's attention with issues that are outside his responsibility and about which he is expected to feel guilty if he does not do something about them outwardly. In such cases, his best response is to use the RTCM, whether he is meant to respond to those issues and the expectations bound with them through saying the inner no to them. Firm seclusion, otherwise, refers to his only taking care of what is directly relevant to his personal life. If something outside of that is brought to his attention, he is to ask the sage whether he is meant to respond to it inwardly. Here, firm seclusion warns us that the collective ego, in fostering the idea that humans are special over other species and over nature in general, violates cosmic harmony. This violation occurs when humans believe they have the right to use animals or humans for medical experiments, when they indulge in genetic engineering, and when they encroach into the consciousness of other life forms. Such pretensions and the actions they spawn create a fate for the people involved and for all who support those views. Line 2. She should not follow her whims. She must attend within to the food. Being firmly correct brings success. A parent follows whims when he encourages the child to develop images of himself as either special or unequal. She, throughout this hexagram, refers to either parent. Attending within to the food refers to the task of the parents to foster the child's connection with his feelings, through which cosmic nourishment comes. Being firmly correct refers to the parents protecting the child from spells and projections which are created by a person's saying, he, she is that type of child, and that is the way he, she is. It also means that the parent must avoid placing the shoulds of the collective ego over the child's feelings. The child needs to learn that his feelings are of first importance in his perception of reality, and they can be relied on. When this line applies to an adult, it counsels him to say the inner no to the whims put forward by the ego in himself, such as his impulse to intervene in others' affairs, to influence or force results, or to save the situation. Firm and correct also refers to saying the inner no to the seed phrases that cause a person to rely only on the senses of outer seeing and hearing to determine what is true and false. Among these are: you can only trust what you see. It is obvious that. It is well known that. They say. It has been proven that. What you do not see does not exist. You can't trust your feelings. And seeing proves what is right and what is wrong. The person receiving this line is being informed that he is judging a situation on the basis of his whim rather than on the basis of the underlying truth. For example, the behavior of the person he is observing is due to a spell someone else has put on him of which he is unaware. It often happens that the temper tantrums observed in a child are reactions to spells that have been put upon his true nature. The tantrums are attempts of the child to free himself from being locked into the prison of the spell. This can also be true of adults or adolescents who act compulsively in destructive or self-destructive ways. The phrases that create such spells are, he, she is this type of child. He's going through one of those phases. And that's the way he, she is. To help free such a person from a spell, see Deprogramming procedure. This line also has to do with mistaken beliefs about women's nature, such as they act from whims. These beliefs create projections and spells on women and are a source of cosmic blame to the people who pass these spells along. Similar spells are put on men, as in, men are like that, or he just does whatever he feels like doing. Being firm and correct generally means saying the inner no to something that feels incorrect. Going through the no phase for the 2-year-old is a natural phase of development. However, not all the child's no's are natural. During this time, the parent needs to distinguish the no that comes from the child's true feelings and respect it. If simply to have his way, the parent overrides such a no instead of respecting it, the child will then start saying no to everything to show his frustration that his feelings are not being heard and validated. This can be the beginning of the child's distrust in the effectiveness of saying no. When the child begins to say no to everything, the parent's job is to retreat into inner neutrality, get in touch with his innermost feelings and follow them. The parent's inner neutrality enables him to act from inner truth, halts the developing ego within the child. So this again, the parent's inner neutrality enables him to act from inner truth, halts the developing ego within the child, and allows his true feelings to emerge. Got some contemplations on that one. Line 3. When tempers flare up in the family, too great severity brings remorse. Success if one retreats. When woman and child dally and laugh, it leads in the end to humiliation. This line concerns a person's response to the display of temper in another. Temper in the child can be an expression of his feelings of helplessness due to one or more spells put on him, sometimes already at his conception or in utero, and his feeling of being imprisoned within those spells. Such example of such spells are that he was an unwanted child, that he was born at an inconvenient time, that he is ugly or defective, that he has the favourable genes or inherited characteristics of a family line, etc. Other spells are created by family expectations, such as those that the firstborn put the firstborn as the future head of the family, or the daughter as the future caretaker of their parents in their old age, etc. Other spells are created when the parents act from their mistaken ideas and beliefs that all children contain a potential, if not an actual, hidden monster within them that must be subjugated right away. This idea is based on the conventional belief that children lack inherent guidelines of correctness. Temper can also be adopted by a child after he has seen or experienced temper in the parents or others. If the parents do not correct their own displays of temper, the child's temper can become a means for him to compete with them for dominance, his will over theirs. This, in turn, can lead to the development in the child of the bully ego, whereby he seeks through displays of temper to dominate others and to assure himself of being the king in all his relationships. All causes for temper in the child will disappear once the parents have rid themselves of the root phrases, fears and beliefs that are behind their own attitude of dominance. Once temper has become an instrument of dominance in a person, the correct response for the one encountering temper is to retreat. A properly performed retreat deprives the ego of its energy to continue. The retreat needs to begin at the first show of temper and remain in effect until the person returns to communicating sincerely. This action brings the success mentioned. See page 538, Retreating from Conflict or Opposition. Too great severity brings remorse. Counsels a person to avoid jumping to conclusions when it is unclear from which source temper is coming. While he needs to be firm and correct in retreating from the ego, he must not be severe, act from the ego in himself. He also needs to be sure that the other is not reacting to his or another's attempt to dominate, or to a childhood experience of having been dominated. People tend either to want to crush a child's temper by force, counter-temper, or to dally and laugh with him to distract and disperse his temper. The latter is often done by offering the child food, sweets, or coddling. Dallying may also refer to trying to reason with the child. The consequence of dallying, whether in the child or the adult, is to encourage him to use temper to get preferential treatment. The child who is treated with sweets as a means of diversion then develops a craving for sweets every time he feels helpless. Children offered other consolations develop other types of dependencies. It is important to distinguish temper from the child's rejection of something that feels incorrect or unjust to him. When a child is punished for correctly saying no to something incorrect, it turns a switch in his brain that prevents him from saying the necessary no's in his adult life. Much of the process of freeing the true self is carried out by saying the inner no's, which is impossible for a person in whom that ability has been repressed. I'll say that again. It is important to distinguish temper from the child's rejection of something that feels incorrect or unjust to him. When a child is punished for correctly saying no to something incorrect, it turns a switch in his brain that prevents him from saying the necessary no's in his adult life. Much of the process of freeing the true self is carried out by saying inner no's, which is impossible for a person in whom that ability has been repressed. To remedy this situation, see Saying the Inner No. I also did a video on that. As for the adult who is punishing a child, his resort to severity indicates that he is acting under a spell put upon him. This spell is the self-image of the parent as the disciplinarian. Through severity, he hopes to eradicate demons in the child that actually reside in his own psyche. These demons are repetitive feelings of ought and should. In his mind, they insist that if he does not apply strict punishments, he will be guilty of creating unrestricted chaos in the world. Such a spell and its accompanying phrases and images need to be eradicated from the parent's mental program. The person who experiences the first hint of temper in another person needs to say the inner no and then retreat, as mentioned above. He also needs to discover the spell under which that person labours and extinguish it. One such spell, common to people who have developed the habit of relying on their tempers, lies in their saying, "I have a bad temper." It is reinforced by others who attribute bad temper to that person's nature, as when they say, "That's the way he is," or "He's a type A personality." Such spells need to be broken to return the person to his true nature. Line 4. She is the treasure of the house. The house here is a metaphor for the individual personality. She refers to the sage as the cosmic mother that helps us keep the house in order through giving us clarity and enabling our contact with our inner truth. The reference to treasure informs us that everything the sage does is for our true benefit. It also refers to the multiple functions the sage has in each person's life, as his cosmic teacher, as the helper that watches over the borderline between his subconscious and his conscious mind, so that he does not get overwhelmed by demonic elements, as the helper that calls in other helpers as needed, and as the helper which anyone else can call upon to intervene on a person's behalf when that person is being dominated by the ego. When called for the latter purpose, the sage can temporarily displace the demonic elements that have taken over the other's personality. The line can also refer to a parent who incorrectly puts himself in the place of the sage. This happens when a parent leads his child to think that he or she is the one who acts in all the above capacities. The traditional reading of this line leads a person to think that the treasure is established ancient wisdom and beliefs, when it is actually counsel to consult the I Ching to gain a true understanding of the situation. A person may be looking through a plethora of the world's wise books, thinking that at the root A person may be looking through a plethora of the world's wise books, thinking that at the root all the world's wisdom is the same, and that truth can be found by mental understanding. The I Ching enables a person to attain clarity if he will allow the sage to speak through its text. The sage can only do this by teaching each person individually. One of the means that makes a direct communication with the sage possible is the RTCM that allows the sage to clarify the meaning of the hexagrams in the context of his personal circumstance. It is the sage that determines how the coins fall, which hexagram is obtained, and which lines provide the hints that help him find the inner truth of his situation. Line 5. As a king, he approaches his family. Fear not success. This line counsels a person that he needs to rid himself of the idea that he needs to be authorized in his thoughts and actions by an outside authority. This idea has deprived him of the ability to feel his inner truth and to act from it. Fear not tells the intimidated true self of a person who has grown up in an authoritarian culture. Say that again. Fear not tells the intimidated true self of a person who has grown up in an authoritarian structure that while the sage knows everything, it does not use its knowledge to intimidate or belittle those it teaches. As Lao Tzu wrote, the sage squares without cutting, carves without disfiguring, straightens without straining, enlightens without dazzling, from verse 38. He also needs to understand that the sage is not above or superior to him because all parts of the cosmos are equal. Success refers to the inner freedom he gains from learning this about himself. The sage sometimes approaches the individual as a king to authorize him, knowing that he is not yet able to authorize himself by relying on what his inner truth tells him. The sage does this to help him bridge a gap in his self-awareness. By contrast, the collective ego elevates itself as the sole authorizing body that approves or disapproves every person's existence, worth, and purpose. It succeeds in holding this position by inserting the belief in the child that he needs to be approved by others. This belief puts spells on his cosmic gifts in two different ways. In repressing his ability to say no, or to ask for help, or in aggrandizing superficial or isolated abilities such as his mental faculties. These spells create a conflict between his abilities. This conflict then causes an imbalance in the personality and leads to the development of compensatory self-images. The person whose abilities have been denied believes that he cannot do what comes naturally to him. He cannot paint because he has not studied art. His way of expressing himself is invalid because he is not certified to do so, etc. Seed phrases of such spells are, "Who has authorized you to do that? Who are you to ask that question?" There needs to be a head of state, family, ship, business, department, army, etc. You need a title to be someone, or only those who are authorized have the right. Such a person may also have to rid himself of his belief in obedience to authority. The king, in this case, represents an institution of the collective ego that has been given the purpose of authorizing a person's very existence. It does this by registering the individual's birth, his various affiliations, and by authorizing his subsequent activities or withholding its authorizations. The presumption is that all activity, behavior, and belief of an individual is subject to being declared valid or invalid by a human authority, while in fact, this presumption has no validity in cosmic terms. The very idea of authorizing is part of the feudal mindset and has no cosmic reality. The collective ego stands as an authority only by the consensus of all the individuals who support it. Juicy hexagram. Line 6. His help commands respect. In the end, success comes. The help that commands respect is given by a person's fully functioning common sense. Common sense is the helper that enables him to live his life in harmony with the cosmic whole. This line may be telling a person that he can safely trust his common sense. See glossary, common sense. Another meaning is that through a person's effort to free his true self, he has gained respect for the cosmic possessions that were given to him at birth. See Hexagram 14, possession in great measure. Among which are his cosmic virtues, goodness, kindness, caring, sensitivity, patience, and loyalty to his inner truth, and possessions such as his inner truth, his memory of what cosmic harmony feels like, his abilities to learn, the ability of his body to function harmoniously, and his ability to say no and to ask the helpers for help. Highlighting that one. All these helpers express themselves as feelings. Self-respect occurs when a person has freed these helpers from their inner prisons. Freeing the true self from the ego allows all one's helpers' possessions to come to their full expression. This is the meaning of success comes, because the person is fulfilling his destiny. Receiving this line can also indicate that a person needs to free himself of one or more of the spells mentioned in the previous lines that have imprisoned some of the helpers. To determine if this is the case, he may use the RTCM. By contrast, the collective ego defines respect as the honor a person achieves by conforming to its standards and attaining its definition of success, as measured by wealth, position, fame, enlightenment, etc. These attainments qualify him as special in its hierarchy of values. The higher in this hierarchy he goes, the more he loses himself and the more he separates from the cosmic whole, creating fate after fate. My contemplations. So I've had this one before, and I start from the beginning and work to 6, the lines. And how many times have I had this? 6th of April, 3rd line and 5th line, and then the 2nd of May, so yesterday, I had line 2. And yeah, I've been dealing with my son who happens to be going through this no phase. Right? I didn't know that the I Ching, the I Ching, the text here, actually gave any parental tips. So I was like, God damn, like this book has got just about everything, and I've got so much more to go. Like I've got a list here of what the hexagrams I'm up to, the timings of when I've done them. So I'll make sure that I cover all of them. And I definitely want to hit up the glossary. I think the next video I'll make is the glossary. It's 8:30 right now. I'll probably see if I can smash out a glossary. See how I can go. But one of the more important things here is that this talks to specifically the family, the cosmic family, and being able to call for help. Okay? Being able to call for help. Help me. Help me. Right? Because what can show up with people who are not used to asking for help is that they try and do it all on their own, and or they tend to be the ones that overgive and then feel really resentful when the people that they've been giving to don't reciprocate, right? Because you've been keeping this secret ledger in the background, probably because you've been overgiving. You actually don't know your own boundaries. Your common sense has told you, don't do that, but you're stuck in this virtue trance of trying to be the good person or the good helper or the good wife or the good sister or the good community member or whatever it is, right? It needs to be noted that help comes to anyone who asks for it, but when the person is not in the correct place within himself, help comes with a fate attached, right? So the help, and this is why I say it's important to build a relationship with the sage before dramas, because you can come into your neutral self, you can come into that neutrality and know specifically what you're asking help for. What am I asking help for? Now I've got this thing and this thing coming up. Cool. Are they related to an outside authority? Well, yeah. Well, say no to that first, right? Because what can show up here, and I've had this with friends before, where like they're low on money or they need some kind of help or something, right? And then they actually don't want to let go of their old life. They don't want to let go of their own life, their old life. So they want the support to stay where they are, and then they wonder why they can't earn the correct income that they want to earn. They can't do whatever it is that they want to do because they're living an incorrect life. And the limitation that's being placed on them is actually a fate that they need to move or do something or speak or say something else or stop living in this between the two stools of the life that they want to live and the one that they know so familiarly, which their nervous system is attuned to. Their function is to teach the child that they are not the source of love, help, and nourishment, but the vehicle through which these gifts flow to him from the cosmos. So with my son, Luca, and with my number 2, which is on the way, this is much more of what I've been doing with Luca and allowing him to hang out with more people. A classic example, he does soccer once a week. And last time he was at soccer, he didn't actually want to play. There's a huge playground just opposite the soccer field. He wanted to go and play over there in the soccer field. And I felt this pressure to try and keep him on the field. It costs money to show up at this soccer game. That's what we were there for. Like all the rigid rules. That's what we were there for. So we had to spend a time doing. So I just ended up. I caught myself in this rule loop, right? This collective ego. You paid for it. You got to be here, right? Must get your money's worth. And so I just let him go and play. He wandered off by himself, probably like 200 meters away from me. I just watched him, right? He went over to the swings, and there was somebody else on the other swing. He went to the baby swing, and he was just standing there just yelling out, "Dad, Dad, Dad." And I just let him yell at me, because for me, in my common sense was, don't move. Stay where you are. And then what happened was one of the other dads in the playground just picked him up and put him on the swing and just started pushing him for about 20 minutes. I was like, this guy's pushing my son for 20 minutes. Like the love and the nourishment in our community, in our town is amazing, right? So by knowing that he's supported, not just through me or me giving out of obligation, he's calling for me, I have to go. No, I didn't. I actually didn't. Okay, so that's the importance of being connected with your body and allowing the senses that flow through you to inform you about what actions to take. Because if I take an action that's not for me, I incur a fate, which isn't bad, but it's a guiding point. Oh, Luca could have missed out on something, right? It's not just me, the human-centered view of the universe. It could be him. He missed out on having that experience of having another dad, a safe masculine figure. And I checked his energy. He was cool. He's a cool dude. Right? So, in that, when the love relationship is not based on this respect, it cannot attain duration. Cool. So, the family thus defined is the setting that prepares the child for his future love relationship. Right? So, all of my fatherly and John, all of myself, is about attuning him to relationships, his love relationships with other people, and how to respect himself, how to respect the other person. How I respect Cassie is how Luca will respect Cassie and then his future partner. Modeling, right? And this can't be, if children have grown up in a broken family system, they need to have their love map rewritten. Otherwise, they end up with people that mirror their parents. Because the individual has been encouraged to believe that they are the only sources of protection he has, they have taken on the function of authorizing his existence, worth, and purpose. Luca has so many influences in his life. He's got his grandparents, he's got his uncles, he's got like our friends, Cassie's and my friends. He's got so many influences. And I remind him that he's so well protected. And even in his presence and in his essence, when I'm deeply present with him, there's the innocence that's there, which I know that he knows this. But for me to speak it into existence helps ground that into his body. To this end, the parents train the child to suppress his awareness of the contradictions between what is said and what he feels is true. Thus, he gradually learns to substitute the shoulds and oughts of the collective ego for his inner truth. So there's some fine tuning here that I've been going through, especially when I say good job to Luca, right? Whenever he does something, okay? So what I'm doing in that good job and that energy is I'm rewarding whatever the collective ego things, like putting his shoes away, do that, do whatever, okay? It's an energetic thing, which I actually don't have to say anything to him, right? I don't have to say anything to him. So this habit that I've got into about saying good job is something that I'm saying an inner no to stop saying it. Just stop it. If he does the thing, right? It's a pernicious and slippery slope when you compliment a child, especially when he does something new or when he does something better than another child, because the temptation for the parents is to make their child special, right? Is to put them on the pedestal, especially in the competitive schooling environment. Oh, she was the ducks of the school. Oh, he won gold. Oh, right? All those collective egos, achievements, and accolades, which don't translate into adulthood at all. In fact, they create more self-images that need to be deprogrammed in adulthood, right? An example is the child's duty to love the parents. It is the child's nature to love those who care for him lovingly. Another spell is that the child owes his life to his parents, because a child, once born, is a cosmic gift to the parents. The child does not owe his life to them. Another is related to the concept of obedience. Children should be seen and not heard. All right. So we're talking about multiples of generations of this type of behavior, where, especially culturally, where there's an assumption that the children need to take care of the parents. No, at all. I am a cosmic gift to my parents, and Luca is a cosmic gift to me. There is no obligation there for him to take care of me. And same thing with my mum and my dad, is that there is no obligation. There's no obligation for me to take care of them. And that strengthens my relationship with them because it's truth. It's not built on some family model. Also, what also just popped into my head, that it takes a village to raise a child, right? That's also bullshit. Because in that, it's an image there that you have to have a village in order to parent your child. You don't. I listen to my body, which helped me choose Cassie, which helped her to choose me, and I intuitively knew that we needed to move here. And the support that we have, it wasn't because I needed a village, I just knew I needed to be here. So if it takes a village to raise a child as some form of victimhood over your own responsibility or irresponsibility as a parent, then you need to say the inner no to the guilt and the shame and the blame that's there. The parents, on the other hand, who view themselves as representing the collective ego, create the impression in the child that they are the only source of his primal needs, right? So, which is the guilt and shame piece of being motivated to take care of your children. So, they have to have everything. They have to. No, they don't. They don't. They are but caretakers on behalf of the cosmic whole. In such cases, his best response is to use the RTCM to see whether he is meant to respond to those issues and the expectations bound with them through saying the inner no to them. Okay, so it's classical in the mainstream media and social media as well, or wherever you get your news from, is that you can be presented with things that you've been brought to your awareness and you have to respond to them, whether it's GMOs, whether it's vaccines, whether it's this, whether it's oil, whether it's climate change, whether it's, some other thing that you feel like, this is a responsibility that we need to take care of, the planet needs saving. It's like, maybe, do you as an individual need to prioritize that? You can ask the RTCM. For me, I just intuitively know that's not for me. That is for me. That's not for me. Right? Such pretensions, and the actions they spawn create a fate for the people involved and all those who support the views. Okay, so anything. So here we go. This violation occurs when human beings believe they have the right to use animals, the right, okay, the right, or humans for medical experiments, when they indulge in genetic engineering and when they encroach into the consciousness of other life forms, okay? So right now, that's happening quite a bit, right? There's plenty of patents out there which speak to genetic manipulation, manipulation of humans through sound waves and sonics, all kinds of things. Mainstream media manipulation, bots that influence news feeds, fake news. So by saying no to all of these, because if you say yes to them and you like what they're saying, then you just attach to the same fate that they are. So by saying no to anything that's not the truth, by saying no to anything that thinks it has a right to anything, we are all equal. All equal. The child needs to learn that his feelings are of first importance in his perception of reality and that they can be relied on. So present to Luca's feelings. Like being aware of what's going on for you, mate? What's there for you? Actually being genuinely empathetic, even to wanting to give words to his sensations. Like, what's there for you? What are you feeling? Feel sad? Feel upset? Did that shock you, mate? Right? It's not so much in the labels of the words, it's in the energy of the voice. So did that shock you? Did it catch you by surprise? You hungry? What are you feeling there, mate? You want something to do? You looking for something to do? When this line applies to an adult, it counsels him to say the inner no to the whims put forward by the ego in himself, such as his impulses to intervene in others' affairs, to influence or force results, or to save the situation. This impulse is so present, particularly in merging patterned people or people who have poor boundaries. Intervention. But I have to say the thing. I have to say it. They're my friend. I don't want them to get into trouble or feel bad or get sick. It's like, well, is it for you? Are you being another busybody? You're sticking your nose in other people's business. Keep your nose out. Stay in your own lane. You can only trust what you see. It is obvious that. It is well known that. They say. It has been proven that. What you do not see does not exist. You can't trust your feelings. And seeing proves what is right and what is wrong. I did a post about this. Truth. Okay, truth. And truth is atomic. Okay, it's there and then it's not. Okay. You speak it, it lands, it's no longer relevant anymore. It lives on in the person as a frequency. So in the truther community in particular, there's this interesting double bind that I see where on one hand they distrust the government, they distrust these authorities, and then simultaneously on the other side, the opposite, you have to have evidence for whatever you're saying. But then in that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, you're just still outsourcing your authority to something that's put in a hierarchy. So for someone who doesn't know how to feel their feelings or trust their feelings, trust what's going on for them. And this is beyond human design strategy and authority, which I've mentioned before. I'm not using human design anymore, and human design will keep you trapped in a loop. So will gene keys. You can't trust your feelings because your feelings are all of your common senses. It's not just your strategy and your authority. It's so much more than that. So whether it's the aha or the waiting to respond or whatever it is, waiting for a full moon cycle, all of those different, splenic. It often happens that the temper tantrums observed in a child are reactions to a spell or spells that have been put upon his true nature. So what I notice now that I've read this hexagram, knowing when Luca throws tantrums, when I actually retreat and become neutral, the tantrum's over very quickly, right? But that requires presence, right? For example, when a child is tantruming and you don't know how to hold the container for their energy as well as your own, like being with the potential humiliation or the shame of like, oh, I'm not a good parent. My child's tantruming. He's on the floor. He's screaming at the top of his lungs. So I can be with all that now, right? From the tantric work and the lower self work that I've done, like when you learn how to tantrum as an adult, there's so much more presence that can be found in your body, like properly tantrum. Like when I was doing my core energetics mentorship, we would tantrum for ages. Like we would tantrum until we'd cry, because that tends to be what it's at the bottom of a suppressed tantrum, is grief, because you connect to all the no's that you've never said. You connect to all the no's that you betrayed yourself with, or connect to all the yeses that you never said, or the opportunities that you potentially missed out because you didn't want to disappoint someone or disappoint yourself, or didn't want to put somebody else out, right? So when you learn how to tantrum, when your body knows what it feels like to have a tantrum, then there's a freedom that it frees your common sense because you connect back to it again. So, oh, this is an authentic feeling. This is back. I know what this is. Going through the no phase for the 2-year-old child is a natural phase of development. Like I mentioned, Luca's going through that right now. It's actually really funny to me because discerning the difference between his solid no and his not so solid no is entertaining for me, because his expression shifts and his no's are fine. Like his no's are like, yeah, cool. Don't do it then. I'll do it. The part of me that wants to be like my dad, how I was raised, was you do it or you this, do it or that, right? Do it or this, right? But when you talk to the child as the child, there's an equality that flows through. We're equals. We're equals in the sense that we are equals in the cosmic universe. And sure, I know a little bit more about life. It doesn't mean that your no is not valid. The parent's inner neutrality enables him to act from inner truth, halts the developing ego within the child, and allows his true feelings to emerge. Luca is one of the most empathetic kids I've ever seen. And yeah, put a spell on him. So like I love watching Luca be empathetic to other kids. Oh, you're crying? It's going okay. You know, he sees a kid crying, goes over to them, puts his hand on their back. Are you okay? You okay? He's 2.5. And he's got another side where he will scream at children, where I can see that he can tell that child will react to the screaming. And then the other day when he was at the playground, I noticed he was stepping on the feet of a baby. And I was, Luca, and I just grabbed him and pulled him away. Intervened. And then when I did that, he just went off and did something else. So what I've found is that also in the environment, being aware of potentially spells and arrows being put on him while he's at a playground, while he's being who he is, because he is, I find him an adventurous little kid. Examples of such spells are that he was an unwanted child, that he was born at an inconvenient time, that he is ugly or defective, that he has the unfavorable genes or inherited characteristics of a family line. Other spells are created by family expectations, such as those that put the firstborn as the future head of the family or the daughter as the future caretaker of the parents in their old age. Very cultural things, right? And I had this put on me, for sure, being the eldest of 5, right? You're the eldest. You're the eldest. You got to set the example. You're the eldest. Like, what? What example? So, which turned me into an exceptionally well-performing child. Like, I was smoking. I was keeping secrets from my parents about smoking and drinking, and doing all kinds of stuff because I needed to maintain that image of the good child, the squeaky clean child, right? This in turn can lead to development in the child of the bully ego, whereby he seeks through displays of temper to dominate others and to assure himself being the king in all his relationships. So this crossing over with the 5 personality patterns here. This is the aggressive pattern. And what shows up is, depending on the subset of the aggressive, sometimes it can be an endurer aggressive and sometimes it can be an oral aggressive. What shows up here is the endurer, and I'll jump into the aggressive pattern again. The endurer survival pattern is installed when their no is rejected over and over and over and over again. Whenever they say no, they're not allowed. And then, because their no gets confused, their yes gets confused. So they get stuck in this paralysis of, well, if I damned if I do, damned if I don't, so I'm just not going to do either. And this is the survival pattern that sabotages. They're the ones that start these fad diets and then crash. They're the ones that tend to want to take themselves out. The most highest ratio of suicidal ideation or passive ideation. They're the ones that get frustrated with life the most. They're the ones that ask for advice and then don't take it. And then to plug this into the aggressive pattern, who tends to be the bully, so they were betrayed early on, and their parents couldn't hold their temper. Parents could not hold their temper, and or the parents gave them too much freedom. They're still not holding them. The parents are not containing the child. They're not teaching him limitation, right? Not showing him the difference between his no's. So what happens is he gets overwhelmed with so much power that he becomes a bully. And in that, to restore that requires to show him and to hold the frequency of that the world is trustworthy. You can trust people around you. You can trust your no. You can trust your yes. There are people around you that want to support you in the physical as well as the immaterial. People tend to want to either crush a child's temper by force, counter temper, or to dally and laugh with him to distract and disperse his temper. This is very common. Oh, don't cry, don't scream, here. And shake the rattle. The latter is often done by offering the child food, sweets, or coddling. Dallying may also refer to trying to reason with the child. Right? How many of us who have kids have done that? Right? We can't be with the overwhelm or the humiliation of our child acting up. So we try and counter it strategically. But then they learn. They learn that, oh, that works. So it shows up in their adulthood, right? Eating disorders, the whole shebang-a-bang. Well, the most eating disorders are related to some kind of early childhood sexual violence. Not always. But you end up with some kind of disorder. Right? It's a sweet tooth or something else. It is important to distinguish temper. And to distinguish temper requires you to be able to distinguish temper for yourself, which requires you to know what your anger feels like in you. What does your anger, unbridled rage feels like in you when you don't get your own way? I want it. I want the business. I want the partner. I want the job. Right? I want the health. Where? Right? Knowing what that feels like in your body, you can detect that in a child because it has the same frequency, but you got to go there. This is lower self-work. You got to go there. When a child is punished for correctly saying no to something incorrect, it turns a switch in his brain that prevents him from saying the necessary no's in his adult life. Much of the process of freeing the true self is carried out by saying the inner no's, which is impossible for a person in whom that ability has been repressed. This line sums up the endurer incredibly well, where they will say no just to create space for themselves, but then not actually execute. And the endurer is the one most likely to have excess adipose tissue, fatties, right? So they're punished. And what happens is they keep on eating to create space between you and them because they're afraid that their no is going to be invalid. Their no is going to be violated again. And then these people end up in relationships with narcissists and all kinds of other people because they don't know how to say their no, or a semi-healthy relationship with a passive-aggressive person because two passive-aggressive people can live together quite, they can be together. This line counsels a person that he needs to rid himself of the idea that he needs to be authorized in his thoughts and actions by an outside authority. All right. So for those of you and for myself, I'll speak to myself. Now, the part of me that felt like I needed to get all these qualifications, right? The part of me that when I'd make a post and someone would ask me, "What's your qualifications?" That used to piss me off, right? My qualification is a mentorship. Sure, I've got a certificate, but it's mostly like a cornflake packet certificate. It was like a, here you go for being here. It was great mentorship. But it wasn't the same mentorship that you'd get or proper training that you'd get, like getting like a 3-year uni degree. That level of certification or authority, all right? And I have other qualifications as well. But even then, it's like there's still a reliance on, like you should listen to me because I have these certificates, right? And the same thing happens with PhDs and all the other doctorates and everything else. Oh, you're a lawyer, therefore, you got a PhD, therefore, you've got all these qualifications. How many people out there know people who have qualifications and they're unhealthy as fuck, especially in their relationships, right? People who have PhDs who still cannot function as a person. They'll give themselves get all these diagnoses to try and make a barrier between who they really are and their victimhood, so they don't take ownership of their life. I'm sure you know people like this, right? So what happens here in this I Ching is incredibly powerful, is that you can reset the barrier for equality, and not in a feminist way, is that you just are all equal at a consciousness level. You are equal in that I'm not afraid of police. I'm not afraid of a lawyer. I'm not afraid of anyone that wants to come after me. I'm fearless because I have this in me now. I don't need to be authorized. He also needs to understand that the sage is not above or superior to him because all parts of the cosmos are equal. Success refers to the inner freedom he gains from learning this about himself. Yes, there is a freedom for me to speak to anybody as an equal. It shows up in my client base. I don't see myself as better than anyone, which is why the transformations are so different. By contrast, the collective ego elevates itself as the sole authorizing body that approves or disapproves every person's existence, worth, and purpose. This is something that I see that's coming to an end, especially with the introduction of AI, that this whole concept of hierarchy through intelligence or knowledge gained through university or some badge or whatever is being completely reset. Completely reset. In repressing his ability to say no or to ask for help, or in aggrandizing superficial or isolated abilities such as his mental faculties, right? So when someone puts their trust in outside authorities, you lock down all of your internal, superficial, you lock down all of your genuine, unique gifts. Then you put on a pedestal all these superficial or isolated abilities, right? Because to step through that portal of not needing a qualification and being able to just be okay with who you are and your own innate gifts is a rite of passage which requires an identity shift. Who am I to say this? Who am I to put this out there? I don't have any followers. What's your qualifications? Where did you learn this? Right? My more controversial posts that go for the jugular of therapists, I tend to get a lot of therapists in my DMs saying, "Oh, but this and this and this." It's like, yeah, but the therapist is not speaking truth. They need to be in a governing body, right? They stay in that position because they get paid based on whatever the insurance is. I'd rather keep my license and get paid under this system that doesn't actually serve anybody. The mental health care system in Australia does not work. It's just it's an extension of the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, where it just keeps people in a loop. 10 sessions a year for the mental health care plan, like 10 hours of someone who doesn't really know you, can't really help you, right? My 16-week course is what, eight times 30 minutes, and it completely radically changes someone's life. Radically. 30 minutes, 8 times 30 minutes. Done. You'll never be the same person again. But these people who have qualifications, who can't speak the truth, who can't feel their bodies, are elevated as an authority. Cosmic positions that were given to him at birth, among which are his cosmic virtues, goodness, kindness, caring, sensitivity, patience, and loyalty to his inner truth, and possessions such as his inner truth. Okay, cool. So, when you come into contact with your true self and you start operating from that place, there's no longer any need to perform goodness, perform kindness, perform caring, perform sensitivity, perform patience, and perform loyalty. You are a natural, walking, breathing embodiment of it. That's what cosmic harmony feels like, right? I see posts and influencers talking about, in order to be a good man, you've got to be virtuous, and you've got to be moral, and you've got to be kind. If you don't know, if you're doing that from a performance place, that you'll incur a fate. You end up, this is what I see happen, especially in religious institutions that put this morality on a platform. You shame and demonize the lower self, the animal body, to try and put this performance on the animal body to be good and kind and caring. But at the end of the day, you've demonized your animal body, and it'll come out in some other way. And it usually comes up in behind closed doors, right? When you're not performing in front of the church, or performing in front of your community, right? So cosmic virtues come from inner truth, which comes from inner alignment. And if you live an unaligned life, if your life is not in alignment, then you're performing. You're performing good kindness, caring, sensitivity, and patience. Sometimes you just need to tell someone to fuck off. Or you could say that in a no to them. But if it's your truth to say that, then you need to say that. Your body will feel a truth that's bubbling through you. And the exercises that I take clients through, like vocal exercises, express to me, tell me how angry you are. What's really going on for you? Are you pissed off? Yes, no. What's really alive for you? Right? Not the performance piece. Like, oh, this and that, and, he's a good person, and this and that. He takes care of the kids, and this and that, and we had some good times together. Can you feel the difference in the energy? Now, what's the truth? What's the fucking truth? I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off. I'm upset. I'm disappointed. I'm all these things, right? I want to punch someone, punch a brick wall. I want to stomp my feet, right? I was doing a podcast a while ago, and but the guy asked me, like, what about, how does the childhood behavior show up in adults? And I said, look, one of the exercises that I show people is to stomp their feet. Stomp their feet like they're throwing a tantrum. He said, oh, wow, John, I love that you mentioned that, because my wife, we're having an argument, and she stomped her feet, and then we both broke out laughing, because I said to her, did you just stomp your foot? And she said, yeah, I did. So this childhood patterning continues to play out in adulthood. But when you're with a partner that is genuinely present with you, which this guy from the podcast was, he's a really present guy, and you notice these things, and then you can speak to them, because speaking to it validates the feeling, then there's a unification and a repatterning of the central nervous system that makes you feel safe, that reminds you, oh, I'm allowed to be this way. I can stomp my foot. I was annoyed. My body wanted to stomp my foot, so I did. But the performance will try and keep it all together, right? Try and hide the anger, try and swallow the part of you that wants to rage, right? The part of you that wants to curtail your words, try and keep them all hidden, which sometimes you can do, like by not the choice to not activate the ego in others, in the other. But you got to learn how to do that. It takes practice. That's what I'm here for. It's what I do. I help people practice. The perfect gym for that. All right, cool. So that's what I have for Hexagram 37 and the lines. Thank you for listening.